Hey everybody, it's time for Turn It On. Are you ready?
Coming to you from Music City,
Nashville, Tennessee.
the definitive arts and entertainment podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth installment of Turn It On. My name is Michael J. I'm your host for this program, and thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've all had a great summer now that fall is upon us. I have fortunately myself been very busy with this show and with doing a bunch of touring. I was lucky enough to get to do a festival gig with Chuck Wicks on July 4th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, on the same bill with 1,000 Horses, Eric Paslay, Logan Mize, and Natalie Stovall. And we had a great time. It was a great gig. Got to say Happy Birthday America, saw some fireworks, the usual. I also got to do a couple weekends with my friend Corey Cox. The first one was a festival in Columbus, Nebraska with Craig Wayne Boyd and Logan Mize again. That was a great time, great couple weekends. And I capped off the end of July and the beginning of August with a female artist named Casey Jamerson. Casey actually sang in the show Bring It On Broadway in New York City for a couple years. And she was also in the touring production of Cirque du Soleil down in Australia for a while. Very, very talented singer. And those shows were great. It was the first of those two weekends with Casey and her band that was particularly interesting. We did a gig at the Wild Horse here in Nashville. And since I was a fill-in guitar player, I really only had about a week and a half to learn in excess of 50 songs for her show. So I had my work cut out for me. On the day of the gig, which was a Saturday, we did a quick rehearsal at Casey's place, acoustic with the band. And things went pretty well. We seemed like we were gelling, and everybody kind of knew the parts. And I was still kind of in a brain scramble trying to, keep everything straight. It's a lot of songs, especially some of them being original tunes that I'd never really heard before. So we wrapped up our rehearsal around 4 p.m., and our slot was from 6 to 9, I believe. So the plan was to meet at the Wild Horse somewhere between 5 and 5:30, which would give me time to get acclimated to the stage and get my in-ear rig all situated, because Casey and her band had done the night before with their other guitar player. So basically, I was the only one that really needed to set up and get ready to go. So to give you some idea of the geography of the events that occurred, I live about 15 minutes from where the Wild Horse is. Casey lives also about 10 to 15 minutes from where the Wild Horse is. So I figured I had enough time to get home, get a quick shower, change my clothes, get my last pieces of gear in the car, and get to the gig by 5 to 5:30. What I did not realize was that the city of Nashville was shutting down all of I-40 to do construction on the weekends for a few weeks, and this created a huge traffic problem. I figured this out only as I was in the traffic, and I left myself plenty of time to get there. I left my house at around 4:45, so by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, 5:15, I'm still in traffic. I gave the bass player for Casey's band a call, and he was the band leader for the show, and I filled him in on the traffic situation, but I knew an alternate route, and I knew it's kind of a way to get there to where I might be a little bit later than 5:30, but I thought I would make the show and it wouldn't be a problem. When I finally got off the interstate, I got stuck in yet more traffic, and by this time it was nearing 20 minutes to 6. So by the time I got downtown and made my way over to where the Wild Horse is, which is on 2nd Avenue, and you have to go to 1st Avenue in order to load in. I made my way up to 1st, and much to my surprise, there was a giant dumpster and a barricade blocking off all of 1st Avenue, which apparently was there for some sort of street festival that was going to be happening later in the night. Now, at this point in time, I made an executive decision. Now, let me just say this. I drive a Honda Fit. For those not familiar, it's not a big car. All my friends, when I bought it, started calling it the roller skate. So there's that. Now, between where this dumpster was and where the barricade was, there was actually a section of sidewalk that was no longer really than a width and a half of my car. So it almost wasn't even a sidewalk. And in that moment of desperation, I decided, screw it, I'm cutting over right here to 1st Avenue so I can make this gig, because I've got the guys calling me now, asking where I am, asking if I'm going to be there on time. And if you're a musician out there, I will liken the act of getting to a gig when you're late to trying to bring a pregnant woman who is in labor to a hospital. You gotta get her there, and you'll go to any means necessary to get to that gig on time. So just as I cut over on the sidewalk, there apparently was a policeman behind the dumpster that I did not see, and jumped out and started screaming at me to stop the car. So, which I did, and rolled down the window, and this guy was very irate. Now, let me also say this, as I'm on the sidewalk, this is an abandoned street. There are not people around. There's nothing, basically. There's some parked cars. There's some random people on the other side of the street, but it's relatively deserted, so I didn't think I was really hurting anything by cutting over. I thought, cop didn't see it. I didn't do it. Well, cop saw it. So this guy starts screaming at me, asking me what I'm doing, what I think I'm doing. To which I, calmly replied, "Sir, I'm just trying to get to my gig. And I can see the Wild Horse from where I'm sitting." I said, "It's right there. I'm late for this show. It's my first gig with a new band." I said, "I got stuck in I-40 traffic, and, now you've got the street barricaded off, and I can't get anywhere." And he was not having any of it. He basically yelled at me, "What if I gave you a $250 ticket right now?" To which I said, "Please don't." And then he just said, "Give me your license." And I gave it to him, and he said, "I'll be right back." So apparently at this point in time, he felt he needed to get back up because, I'm such an intimidating person. So I wait there for 5 minutes, and I get another call from the bass player. He asks what's going on. So I tell him, I just got pulled over on the sidewalk at the corner of First Avenue. And he says, "All right, I'm coming down." So he runs out. Now, in the meantime, the officer that stopped me brings back 3 more officers. And now my car is surrounded. A second officer walks up to the window, looking at me like I have 3 heads, and asks, "What do you think you're doing there, pal?" So I explained to him calmly, "Look, I didn't see the guy behind the dumpster. If I'd seen the officer there, I probably would have pulled up and asked him, 'Can you move these barricades for me, because I have to get to the Wild Horse?'" And in the meantime, the officer who pulled me over, it's kind of funny, but he's in the street jumping up and down, throwing a tantrum like a 3-year-old. That's not really what he was doing, but that's what I pictured. So he was kind of screaming his head off, like, "This guy was driving on the sidewalk, blah, 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 blah." So anyway, I explained to the officer, look, when he's told me to stop, I complied, I stopped. All I want to do is make it to my gig. Now, in the meantime, the bassist for Casey's band has now made it up to where I'm parked and is telling the officers, "If you don't let him go, this guy's in big trouble. He works for me. We have to be on stage in 15 minutes. And if you know anything about the Nashville club scene, or the live music scene, rather, most of you probably don't, but they're very, very, very strict on their start times and their end times. So when it's a 6 o'clock start, it is a 6 o'clock start." So the cop then asks for my social security number, which I gave him, and walks away to confer with his fellow officers. Now, I'm just sitting there, and clearly you can see that the back of my car has a road case with an amp, several guitars, another road case for my pedal board. So I'm clearly telling the truth. So anyway, it took about 5 minutes, and I basically, the guy came back to the window, and I said, "Look, if you're going to write me a ticket, just write it." In the back of my head, I'm thinking, I'm not even making as much as this ticket's going to be on the gig, but I still got to get there. So in their infinite kindness, they let me go. The cop just said, "Here's your license. Don't damage your car going down this way, but don't ever drive on the sidewalk again." And I said, "I won't. That's fine." I was going to say I hauled ass down the street, but I didn't really do that. I drove very, very calmly down the street. Once I got to where the Wild Horse door was, the guys in the band, everybody grabbed a piece of gear and threw it on the stage. Now, what was going through my head at this point was, do I remember these songs, number one? Number two, I'm dealing with an in-ear monitor mix, which can be very dicey. So get on the stage, get everything situated, get a mic in front of the amp, get my guitars out, tuned up, and I'm putting my in-ear monitors in. And the song that was playing just before we went on was just about fading out, and it was Stick Clicks and In. So needless to say, for the first 7 to 8 songs, I was pretty shaken up, actually. But thankfully, everything went off without a hitch, and believe it or not, it just never happens. It was the most perfect monitor mix in my ears that I've ever had in my history of playing shows. So kudos to the Wild Horse people. Actually, kudos to the guitar player from the night before for having a great monitor mix, because I got his mix. So that was my great adventure for August. Thanks very much to Nashville's Finest for keeping the sidewalks safe from maniac musicians driving on them to get to gigs on time. Today on the program is a very, very talented singer-songwriter and leader of the band The New Dillons, a guy named Jim Reilley. Not to be mistaken for or confused for the drummer Jim Reilley, who plays with Rascal Flatts. I know him also, but Jim and Jim often get confused for one another. I met Jim back in Rochester, New York, my hometown, in the mid-'90s. He was friends with my drummer, Jason Meerwald's stepmom, and at the time, she kind of suggested that I get together with him, that he might be able to offer me a critique on my songwriting, which he very kindly did. I got him a CD, and he took the time to go through each song and listen to it and make notes on each song. So we had a lunch meeting, and he gave me a list of contacts that he had and people that he thought he could turn my music onto to kind of help me out, help us out. And I remember thinking at the time how very generous a thing it was. Well, you know, I'm happy to say that not much has changed, really. Jim is the same generous, giving, talented guy that he was back then, and he does a lot of production work with some younger up-and-coming artists, and everything that I've heard come out of that studio that he works in is fantastic. Jim is also a very no-bullshit guy, which as a New Yorker, I really appreciate. You always know where you stand with him. He's very opinionated on music and very opinionated on the music business. And it in Nashville, it might rub some people the wrong way, and I know it rubs some people the wrong way, but it's refreshing for me. I always know where I stand with the guy, and he's done a lot for me. He was one of the first guys that I contacted when I planned to move here to Nashville, and he's done a lot to introduce me to people and try to get me up to speed on how the town worked, and I'll be forever grateful. And I was really, really excited when he agreed to be on the show. Jim's band, The New Dillons, were a four-man folk rock outfit composed of both he and his partner, Reese Campbell, and two members of 10,000 Maniacs, Jerome Augustiniak and John Lombardo. Natalie Merchant from 10,000 Maniacs, as well as Michael Stipe of R.E.M., were big fans of the band in the early days, and they were basically critics' darlings in the early 90s with a 4-star review in Rolling Stone, among other things. Jim Reilley and Reese Campbell reformed The New Dillons last year, and with the help of bassist Chris Autry and drummer Ken Coomer, formerly of Wilco, released a new album called Meta. Jim and I sat down and did this interview back in December of 2014, last year. We only had a limited amount of time because Jim was getting ready to do a session with one of the clients that he works with, and I had a hard time finding the studio, so it reduced our time even more. Normally, the audio quality of the podcasts up to this point has been the highest end microphones I could possibly get, but this particular interview was done strictly on an iPhone, and I will say that Apple does a hell of a job. Their app sounds pretty damn good, but it's not the same audio quality as you might have heard in the first 3 podcasts if you check those out. So bear with that. The conversation is riveting. It's very interesting. Jim has a lot of interesting things to say about the music business, and he elaborates a little bit more about his time with the New Dillons. And right now, I'm going to get the hell out of the way and just let you guys enjoy my talk with my good friend, the very talented Jim Reilley. Always running.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going well, man. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah. Things. Are you done with the record yet? Or are you
we're done. Finally, yeah.
Cool.
That's why I'm kind of like, oof.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? Just
today's a tracking session for an artist I'm producing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. She'll be here.
How's that going?
Good. We've got Eric and I, the guy who owns this place. We've got a bunch of things kind of spinning right now. So,
nice.
Yeah, but we kind of share. I mean, this is his place, but I'm gonna keep using all my guitars.
You'd never know this was back here.
I know, that's why he likes it.
I mean,
because it's sketchy. There's no windows except those.
Sure. On the outside, it doesn't look like there's not much in here.
Well, I think part of it is, just like don't advertise what you got. I mean, right here alone, I've got 3 Gibson Custom Shop guitars.
Right.
It's just like his board, and there's a brand new SSL little mini desk there.
Well, yeah, if they can't see it, they won't want to steal it.
Right, that's the thing. There's no way to get in. It's a cinder block.
Yeah.
Kind of building. So.
Yeah.
So how's things, man?
Things are going well, man.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this podcast thingy.
So what is the gist of it?
The idea. Well, I started kind of thinking about all the people I know, and that list alone was pretty impressive. Like the people that have done some cool stuff that are friends of mine. And then I started going 1 degree and 2 degrees of separation away from those people, and it started to get kind of really, really cool.
Right.
So I thought, man, why not why not do it? And I've been such a fan of Marin and what he's done with it, and I kind of thought, I'm like, I'm that guy, but in music. You know what I mean? Really, like, I've been at this for forever.
Right.
So why not just start talking to people? And I, don't have any, grand illusions that it's going to be as big as what he does, but it's.
Hey, why not, man?
Well, you never know. You never know, and it's a chance for me to meet more people in Nashville as well, and to, I don't know, just I like talking to people, so I kind of figured, why not combine all my talents and put it all in one neat kind of box,
There's a TV station called Kneecat Nashville.
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and they saw the piece in the first piece in the Tennessean, and I guess they're affiliated with PBS or something somehow. And, and the woman asked me if I want to do a TV show.
Oh, really?
Like similar to this, only on the Kneecat thing. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to get into that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you. I mean, I know a lot of people I could get.
Sure.
And it'd be interesting. But I don't think I'd want to do a TV show though.
Yeah, the audio thing's a lot less pressure.
Yeah, it's just a lot.
Easier.
Yeah, you just roll up in your pajamas.
Yeah, and my thing is I just want to keep it, like this, we'll talk for 25 minutes and whatever, and I just want to keep it like a loose conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it so what I call inside baseball. I don't want to make it like, what kind of guitar pedals are you using and all that kind of shit, because that get really fucking boring.
Yeah, it does for the wrong people. For the right people, it'd be great. But.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to limit the audience to just music and just musicians. If somebody like anybody in the arts in general, if anybody wants to talk, I'm down for it. So,
it's cool.
Trying to go at it like that. And I talked with Chris Nix already.
Oh, yeah.
I talked with Joe Denham. I don't know if you know Joe Denham at all.
Yeah, I do.
Talked to Joe last night, which was, man, that was like, I knew it was going to be off the rails, but it was just, I laughed the whole time.
That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Good. So I guess maybe, what should we talk about? What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the new Dylan's record?
We can.
Since you've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah, it'd be great. We, obviously we're from the same.
Well, same part of the So, where are you from originally?
Originally Warren, PA, which is down near Jamestown.
Okay.
But we met each other obviously in Rochester. What was that? Probably 94.
God, it's been a long time. Yeah.
And then I moved here in 98. And when I moved here, it was partly to sort of get away from the road and get away from the band, and kind of just prove to myself that maybe I could do something other than that,
right?
Musically,
yeah.
And I had a lot of friends who were down here who told me, and I'd never been to Nashville. We'd never played Nashville.
Oh, okay.
So one of the only places we never did play, and so I came down and sniffed around, and had some good success with some meetings, and met with the BMI rep who. Until then, BMI for us was just this faceless company in New York that we would send pieces of paper to.
Yeah.
We'd sign things and send them off blindly and just be like, okay, well, I'll send this off and see what this does for us. Nothing, okay.
And if you're lucky, they sent you pieces of paper back.
Yeah, little ones. little tiny ones. With a, you owe us, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so when I came here, I came here and made a bunch of trips down from Rochester, and I was still in Rochester doing the Patsy Cline thing at the Downstairs Cabaret Theater. I was the musical director for that.
Okay.
And played guitar. And, like I said, the band had broken up. And so came down here, and then we ended up just moving here, just went for it. And so I got here, and about a month later I got signed to Curb. So I had a one cut before I signed with Curb. And it was I met through our the new Dylan's manager at the time was a guy named Charlie Rothschild from New York, who used to work with Dylan and Albert Grossman managing Dylan.
Okay.
And so it was pretty cool in that sense that it was like, he knew a lot of people here in Nashville. So he introduced me to a guy named Jim Rooney, who is a pretty hefty character here in Nashville, pretty well known. He's produced a lot of great records, and Nancy Griffith and John Prine, people like that. And so he introduced me to Tim O'Brien, who was I was a big Tim O'Brien fan. He was a big influence. Bluegrass mandolin genius.
Okay, I'm not familiar with who he is.
Yeah, he's a multiple Grammy-winning, multiple IBMA award-winning. He was actually, I think, the president of Bluegrass, IBMA for 1 year.
Huh.
But anyway, he and I hit it off real well. We wrote a song, and this guy that I knew from Albany, and his partner, Greg Riggle, who was at CSAC for a while. They were doing a record called The Celebration of the American Farm, and on Farmer's Almanac Records. Almanac, the magazine, started a record label basically, and so this record had like Nancy Griffith, and it had John Cowan and really heavy, cast of characters on there.
Right.
And he said that if the song that Tim and I were writing could get finished in time and we could track it, he'd put it on the record. So Tim and I finished it, and then we had Sam Bush, Charlie Chadwick, and David Greer, and Tim and I in Garth Brooks' studio, and this was literally 2 weeks after I got here. So
really?
I'm like,
that's quick.
I come into town, blow into town, write a song with Tim O'Brien, and a week and a half later, I'm sitting in Garth Brooks' studio with Sam Bush, Tim O'Brien, Charlie Chadwick, and David Greer.
What was that like?
It was amazing, and I'm thinking, well, this is going to be easy. This is going to be great, and it never got any better. But I mean, it's like it was like, wow, this is cool. This is how things happen here. It's like a good old boy thing, and I mean, in the best way, I guess. Maybe not the best way, but in some ways, it's pretty cool that way. But anyway, so I got a cut, and then like literally like maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I got signed to Curb, and how that happened was I had met a bunch of publishers and. Had a bunch of really, what I thought were positive meetings when I would come down from Rochester. And then when we moved here, I would go back and I went back and saw those people. And, it was weird. It's like when I moved here, it was like, before I moved here, they're like, oh, man, you're awesome. We need it. And then when I moved here, it's like, oh, yeah, you're here, man. Now, it's, you're going to find out it's a 3-year town. It's a 5-year town. It's a whatever town. 7-year. It's always odd numbers. Sure. And it's always like 3, 5, or 7 for some crazy reason. I don't know why.
That's weird.
But anyway, so then I went to meet Curb. I actually met a guy who is now my manager and my publisher. His name's Chris Keaton, and I had just read about him in one of those magazines about just leaving Roy Orbison's publishing company and starting his own. So I figured, well, that'll be a perfect meeting. Sure. So I go to his place, and he blew me off the first meeting, which is really funny. I'm sitting in his office waiting for him, and he never came. And of course, this was back in 98, I guess. So not everyone had cell phones. Right. But Chris did. Okay. And so anyway, I'm sitting in his office, and I had his cell number. So I call his cell number from his office phone, which probably freaked him out. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, man, where are you? And he's like, oh, my God, I totally forgot. Will you please let me make it up to you and meet tomorrow? I'm like, sure. So anyway, so I met him that next day, and he said, man, we got to go to Curb. I know some people over there that really dig this. So we went to Curb, and I played a few songs, and it was kind of like not as enthusiastic as most of the meetings I was used to. And so then the next day, for some crazy fate reason, I had a gig at the Bluebird, and it was one of the back in the day. On Fridays, Bluebird would do 2-hour-long early sets for one person, and then the late show would be around. Now it's just early rounds and late rounds, but back then it was 2 1-hour feature slots. And so they had given me one because I played there a handful of times already, and so they gave me one, and all the people that I always used to invite to those shows never once came. None of the publishers ever came. Sure. And for some crazy reason this day, they all did. And I had just met Curb the day before and had what I thought was a pretty lukewarm meeting. Right. But anyway, they're there front and center and watching the show. And of course, if it's a solo show, so everyone there is there to see you. It's not like they're there to see somebody else. So they, they looked around, and there's Sony Tree, and there's Warner Chappell, and there's EMI, and there's, a lot of these other publishing companies, and BMG, I think, one even came, and a couple of others. And of course, Paul Kraft, who just passed away, he was there. Rodney Crowell had come because he was a fan and friend. And my buddy Gene Johnson, who was in the band Diamond Rio, who's also from my hometown. Okay. So, anyway, they offered me the deal right after that. Nice. So then, I was there for 8.5 years, and Chris was my co-publisher because he brought me there. Okay. So then when I left Curb, I got let go. I had a bunch of cuts while I was there, probably 40 or 50 cuts while I was there. And, but no giant, earth-changing singles or anything. But I mean, I had lots of activity.
Well, pardon my ignorance, but what's a typical day in the life of somebody who has a pub deal?
Well,
like, I mean, you write songs every day?
Yeah, you're kind of expected to. I mean, depending on the company, some companies want to keep your book, and some companies just kind of let you do your thing. And it also has to do with like how much they trust you and how much they dig the people you're already writing with,
right?
How much they want to kind of micromanage, who you want to write with,
right?
And I mean, honestly, it sounds kind of like a little big brothery. But honestly, I want to get those connections too. So
sure.
if they could get me to write with artists that I can't get to, then let's do
right.
this.
Is there a quota that you have to meet?
Well, yeah, but it's always. I mean, it's like for me, it's like 12 songs a year, which goes out in
sure,
like a weekend.
yeah.
And I mean, I write a lot by myself, so those are.
Right.
It's 100% songs.
Okay.
So, like, if you and I were to co-write, that's 50% of my one song. That's half of a song to my quota.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're writing every day, man, you're almost even 3 or 4 times a week even, you're going to get those in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Which, back then, I didn't realize, but... I'm turning in like 50 songs a year, and they're only paying me for 12.
You're right.
And after a while, I'm thinking, what am I doing? I'm giving them like 3 times what they're paying me for.
Right.
And they aren't even really paying me that well.
And how much of the end goal or the end product do they keep? I mean, do they keep?
Well, it depends on your deal.
Okay.
But in other words, of all those songs you mean, all of them, because you're under contract.
Okay. But I mean, say you get a cut and it's a huge hit. How much? Like.
Well, it depends on your deal because there's either 100%. 100% they own it all outright.
Yeah.
Which is most first deals.
Okay.
And then you can do what's called a co-pub.
Right.
If you've had some success and you've had some luck, they take half and you take half of the publishing.
You only get that if you've been successful.
Well, typically, yeah.
Typically,
most people don't walk into a first deal and get a co-pub.
Right.
But then they pay you a draw.
Okay.
But all that is recoupable. So it's not like even the guy who's making tapes or cassettes or just cassettes. Listen to me. The guy who's making coffee gets health insurance and doesn't have to pay his money back that they pay him every year.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy at the coffee shop doesn't have to pay his money back. He gets but songwriters do. It's kind of funny, and it's called an exclusive deal. So. And my wife had just moved here with me, of course, and she had health insurance, so health insurance was not a problem.
Right.
But I mean, it was like I would always be the sort of the instigator, the Curious George, the Woody Woodpecker, whatever. Because it's kind of absurd. They kind of want to have it both ways because they call you. Yeah. They call you an independent contractor when it comes to insurance, but they call you an exclusive writer when it comes to keeping your royalties.
Yeah.
So it's like. We want to tell you that you're exclusive with us, but we don't want to give you health insurance. And I'm like, well, so, all right then. So if I'm independent, the very word independent is in the title of the damn job.
Right.
So give me my songs back that you don't want. Like, I'll give you my quota, and even I'll give you 20 more.
Right.
Just take 20 more.
Right.
But the other 10 that you don't like, let me take to Warner Brothers. And they're like, well, you can't do that. You're an exclusive writer. Oh, well, then I can't write for anybody else? Right. Well, then give me health insurance. Well, no, we can't because you're an independent contractor. It's like, well, if I'm an independent contractor, I could go anywhere I want to work, right? Independent means...
Yeah, sure.
So it's so silly. But anyway, it's a waste of time. But anyway, so typical day would be like going to the publishing company, and I was lucky enough to kind of have an office there, so, I was there every day pretty much. I opened up. And so, you go and you go typical writers. One day a week would be a writer's meeting. And we listen to all the songs that just came out, all the new singles. And look at the pitch sheet and see who's cutting and, make suggestions to your song plugger about like, what songs of yours to remind them maybe, because there are millions of songs in the catalog. To remind them maybe of a new song you've written or an older one that might work for this pitch or whatever. Right. And then they're supposed to kind of go out and do that, and you're supposed to go write.
Yeah.
But I mean, typical day, you write maybe 10:30 to 4 or something like that, 3, something, whatever. And, just try and get something good. And if you don't, like I was never one to force songs. A lot of people did. And, a lot of people had formulas. I mean, they would even go in and listen to the latest, Pam Tillis record or Faith Hill record or Carrie Underwood record and then they did this record, let's try and do something like that, but we'll change the third chord or whatever.
Oh boy.
Genius. You know,
Yeah.
and hey, you know, whatever.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, but those are the guys that get all the cuss. So, I mean, they're doing something right. I mean, I don't fault them.
Right.
You know, I don't work that way. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any trouble with anyone doing that.
That's bugged me a lot. I've been out to a bunch of writers' rounds and that kind of thing now, and I've seen a lot of that where people, it's very cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't know why. I mean, maybe you think people are scared to step outside the box, maybe?
Well, you're encouraged to be that way.
Right.
That's the weird thing. It's like, you know, you get to a publishing company and they're like, man, you do something no one else does here. We got to have you here. Because we got other people that do other things.
Right.
But you're like the rocky, folky, alternative guy that we don't have.
Sure.
And luckily, Curb had deep enough pockets that they could afford to keep me there.
Uh-huh.
You know. And so, but then once you're there, it's like, hey, man, we need Montgomery Gentry songs. It's like, I don't have Montgomery Gentry songs. Well, you better find a way to write one.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, have you found it, like, because you do have a rock, like, I know you have country roots, but you have a rock, you know. You're like a rock and roll spirit to me, man.
Thank you. I mean, I've always been that's every deal expects me to be that.
Yeah.
Guy, which is great.
Do you find that has helped you? I mean, because you just mentioned too that sometimes if you're different, if you go against the grain, that people you stand out a little bit more. I've had that happen to me here. People like, oh, you're not like everybody else.
Right. Yeah.
But has that helped or hindered you?
Well, I think probably both in different ways and different measures. You know, I mean, probably helped in terms of like, hey, this is someone that you know has been there. You know, I mean, everyone that knows me knows that I spent 12 years in a van. You know, 300 nights a year.
Down by the river.
Like you have. And, you know, and I mean, I enjoyed the last 16 years I've been here doing that.
Right.
But, you know, I kind of vowed I'd never do the band thing again. And, but as long as I stayed here, everyone was like, man, you know, the New Dillons did, like I'm sure Exploding Boy did, the New Dillons did kind of make a mark.
Yeah.
And everyone knows me from the New Dillons.
Right.
And so it's like, fuck, I don't really have, I went back and, you know, we did an album in '86 on vinyl, the first one we ever did, and then we did 3 with Red House. And, you know, I didn't know anything about recording back then, but I wanted to produce the record anyway. So when I came here, of course, once I started doing my writing deals, I also started producing records. So I've probably produced 50 or 60 or 70 records since I've been here.
Right.
So I really know what I don't know that I know what I'm doing, but I know a lot more than I did.
Yeah, sure,
put it that
sure.
way. I knew nothing back then. Now I know something.
Right.
But I don't know everything.
What was it like back? Because I know that I read somewhere that Michael Stipe called you you one of his favorite bands of that time. What was that? I mean, were you a fan of his?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I love R.E.M.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites of all time. And we traded on that for a long time.
Well, hey, you know,
it was nice.
Cool.
We had 4 or 5 things. We had like a 4-star review in Rolling Stone, top 5 albums of the year in the Village Voice, Michael Stipe, and then, you know, all the other press that we got, because we got a lot of press.
Yeah.
Like, you know, from Musician Magazine, Spin, Rolling Stone, Pulse, Tower Records thing they did, and Stereo Review, Audio.
Yeah.
All those magazines gave glowing reviews to those Red House records. And so we were really lucky in that sense. Of course, you know, and we were out bashing our heads against the wall on the road, not making any money.
Yeah. Did you sell a lot of records? Or?
Nah, not a ton.
Right.
I mean, enough, you know. But I joke that most of the people that bought our records were people we met in person. But, I mean, you know, it was that way back then.
Yeah.
You know. And
I remember.
Yeah, you know, you were there.
Yeah.
But, you know, after about 12 years of that shit, man, oof. So I just was like, I want to come to Nashville. The prospect of coming to Nashville, sitting in a room and writing songs, going home and sleeping in your own bed at night, and making like 10 times more money than I made. Yeah, let's do this.
Right.
You know, when,
right.
how.
Right.
So when I came here, you know, but anyway, like about 2 years ago, I guess, my partner, Reese, who's still in upstate, or actually he's in Pennsylvania, but his father passed away, and when he and I knew each other since nursery school, and we were both only children of single parents.
Okay.
And so we both had a lot of things in common, and all through high school we had competing rock bands. And then, you know, when we did the New Dillons thing, it was great because we really had this amazing chemistry. And, he and I never had any issues other than just, the sort of this is crazy. What are we doing?
Right. So the core of the band was you two guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd always have a rotating cast of drummers and bass players like Spinal Tap. Some of them would self-destruct. And
was it always a 4-piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Always, yeah. I played guitar, he played piano, or keys, and then we had bass and drums. And, but, so when I got here, I was just like, no more of that. I'm older now.
Yeah.
And his father passed away, and we were talking a lot. And he actually had a band, and he came down here, and
How's it going, man?
I produced his band's record down here, and we maintained good friendship, and everything. And but it was like when his dad died, it was like I went back and started listening to all the records again, and it was like, wow, man, these are good songs, but we just did not hit the mark sonically.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to think in the back of my mind, maybe I should do one more, record just for because we put so much into this, we invested so much into this,
right?
That, and people still know us.
Sure.
And it's like I'd love to be able to hand people that I don't know, or that don't know me, like, hey, tell me about the new Dylans, and I'm like, well, don't go to iTunes.
Yeah.
This stuff sucks. I'd love to be able to hand them one thing. It was like, this is
this is how you wanted it. Yeah, it makes sense.
And if nothing else, if that's the only record we ever do, then great.
So that was my next question. Are you pleased with the outcome of everything that came out? Yeah,
it's the best thing I've ever done.
Killer.
And so,
any plans to play out with it at all? Or
yeah.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're gonna do some shows?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna. Yeah. So we started. Reese had always wanted to do another record, so I was the one that was kind of the stick in the mud. So when I told him, hey man, let's do one more and let's do it right. At least one more, maybe 10. But let's do one where I'm like, wow, I want to produce this or co-produce it with Eric. And
cool.
And so here in a studio where I'm really comfortable, all my stuff lives here. It's like, this is where we never had that luxury before. We had great studios,
right?
But it was like we were, an interloper. It felt like, And now, so I've done so much in this studio. I almost feel like I'm, part of it,
Yeah.
So I want to do it here. Reese had been here. He loves it. The drummer, our drummer, is Ken Coomer from Wilco.
Yeah. Okay.
He works here a lot. And Chris Autry is our bass player, and he works here a lot. So it's just like everyone knows the room.
Right.
It's cool. It's comfy. It's homey. It's great sound, everything's here. And anything we need, we can get. So we started writing these songs, and about that same time, I was befriended the guy from the Tennessean, who's the music business writer. I knew a lot of the music writers, but he was the music business writer. And his wife and I had known each other, and he wanted to meet with me and pick my brain about the business and ask if I would be like a silent collaborator,
right?
Like a Deep Throat, essentially, on the music business, for his columns. And I'm like, sure. And then we started talking, and he said, well, he knew about the new Dylans, does everybody, it seems. And yet, Reese and I always joke, if half the people that said they remembered us had bought a record, I wouldn't be broke as I fucking am. But anyway, so anyway, he said, well, man, could we follow this from the very beginning? And I'm like, sure. And I thought he meant, like, come over and do some interviews. Well, the first day they show up with, like, cameras. And Reese and I literally have not been in a room together to write songs in 18 years.
Yeah.
We're sitting in my office, and there's cameras, and they're asking us questions. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll try and write some songs now.
Did you have to kick them out at any point?
No, because I told them it was warts and all. They want to do a documentary. And it turns into they wanted to do with PBS, they wanted to do this documentary on the making of the record. And so since January, they've been doing everything with us.
Cool.
They went up to our hometown, interviewed our band director. They took trips to meet people and fans, and it's a pretty big.
That's killer, man.
thing.
That's great.
Yeah. So then through the course of the year, Reese and I would back and forth these songs, and he'd come down and we'd have writing sessions, and then in August, then we came here and did some demos. Just he and I and Ken and Chris, just to sort of sit with everything, make sure it was ready. And then, he came back down in, I guess it was August, late August, and we did the record.
Wow.
So we spent like a week here, kind of. And then the next several, the basic tracks.
Yeah.
And I was kind of more listening than playing, although I did play some together with the band, since I was putting guitars down. And then after that, then I went back and did all my guitars over. A lot of guitars. Some things stayed on, from the originals.
Right.
But most of the stuff was just, just tracking stuff.
Yeah.
So I could kind of produce, basically.
Okay.
And then, because, it's hard to listen and play.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And, make sure everyone's doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
And then it became, this thing where they got this other company involved called 12th and Broad, which is a big sort of co-venture with the paper, and they're talking about doing some stuff. And the documentary is going to be on PBS at some point. And so all this month, and this is December now, all this month, every day in the Tennessean, they're doing a post.
Very cool.
Whether it's a video or whether it's some sort of, remnant of the interviews or something,
sure.
Or just basically something about the music business, about me as a writer, or as about the New Dillons.
Right.
And it's just basically like how a sort of working class band comes back after 20 years.
Yeah.
And does a record in the new world.
Did the dynamic between you guys change at all over time?
No, it's way better
the same?
now, man.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, we've been really good friends for years. I mean, since we were 4. We've known each other since we were 4 years old. And we're now, I'm 53. So, I mean, it's been 49 years we've known each other.
Sure.
And so, I mean, there's no secrets there. And we've been everywhere together.
Uh-huh.
We've been everywhere in the country together. We've done everything, pretty much that you can do, as a band, And so every experience we have has been experienced together.
Yeah.
So it's like we're brothers,
Yeah.
just as tight as you could be.
That's great.
But it's better now, actually, because we're a lot more honest with each other.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I kind of think the dynamic is better too, because he has his strengths, I have my strengths.
Right.
And we realize those instead of both trying to always do, like, he's definitely very left brain, I'm definitely very right brain.
Yeah.
So when it comes to those kind of decisions, as a matter of fact, we were joking yesterday, because, like, I produced this record with Eric.
Okay.
He didn't have any part of that, really.
Yeah.
Because it's my milieu. But, like, we were talking yesterday about T-shirts and about, like, we need to figure out what company's going to press the CDs and the vinyl, how we're going to do the vinyl. And he's like, welcome to my world. I'm in charge. It was so funny. But it's true, because he'll go and research that shit, and he'll have hard numbers, and he'll have, flow charts and schematics and everything else I can't read. And, and he'll be like, well, if this, then that. And, it's very left brain, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But, that's his thing. He was always our booking agent. He was always...
Makes a lot of sense. The guy, Jason, the drummer for Exploding Boy, was the money guy.
Yeah,
and
usually the drummers are the money guys.
Yeah.
Because I think they realize they got to watch the money. Because otherwise people will just stiff them.
Yeah, right.
Because they're drummers.
Right. Well,
they want to hang with musicians.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, so the record's done almost, and we're going to master it here pretty quick. And then, the plan is to put it out in the first of the year.
Cool.
And there's another company called Featuring.me that is a company that's a website, basically, that allows you to upload all the iterations of the song, and then your friends or fans
can remix it, kind of?
Yeah, they can remix it and buy it and remix it.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool, and they've given us a couple spots on that site, which is cool, because it's going to be a big thing, I think.
Nice.
And I love that stuff myself. I'll go on and do it myself.
Sure, yeah.
But, I have one song that has like 4 different sets of lyrics. So I'll put all the different lyrics up there, and people can match, and it'll probably make a better song than live.
Yeah.
Which then I'll start singing live.
Awesome.
If someone comes up with a better version that I like, I'll play it live. Whatever.
Woke up this morning.
How much of a tour are you guys planning?
Well, I don't know yet. We're definitely going to do the Belcourt Theater, because the Tennessean wants to do a couple shows there, or at least one,
Okay.
where we show the film and then play live.
Right.
And then, our hometown library needs a new roof, so we'll probably go up and play the old vaudeville theater that we used to play up there in our hometown. And, we have to play Rochester. We'll have to play places like, Pittsburgh, Philly, Boston.
Right.
Places where we had good followings like Chicago, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And, of course, Ken being in Wilco, and, Wilco being from Chicago, there'll probably be a bunch of people who want to see him.
Sure.
So even if they don't know us really per se, they might want to come see Ken, whatever it takes,
That's great, man.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I mean, we all have things to do here.
Right.
And Reese is in Pennsylvania, so anything we have to do logistically has to figure out that.
Right.
But I'd like to play. Ken really wants to play. He's the one that's most excited to play. And Chris, of course, because Chris tours with Jody Messina. So he's wanting to get out and do some more of that, and something where he's more invested in it, maybe.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that we could maybe do a weekend a month, 4 or 5 days a month or something, maybe.
Right.
Maybe. I don't even know if there's anybody out there that wants to hear it.
Yeah.
The main thing is we made it because we wanted to.
Right.
And it's something that I'm infinitely proud of. It's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Cool.
And so and Reese is just beside himself. Everyone loves it,
Great.
So that's a good place to be.
Great. I'm looking forward to hearing it. That's killer.
So that's cool. So so I mean that's kind of it, and
nice.
And the music industry's changed a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
And we're kind of figuring out if it's just going to be digital and vinyl. And I did like an informal survey on our music page, and it seems like everyone wants CDs. So it's like these Luddites that are our fans. I guess ultimately the ultimate Ludditism is doing vinyl.
Sure,
but I mean, it's hip and it sounds great, and I want this record would really be good on vinyl.
Yeah.
And most people I know download their music on Spotify.
Yeah.
So whatever. Okay, so we'll figure out another way to make money.
Whatever works, right? Yeah, right.
But my thing right now is just I'm really proud of this record. I want it out. I want people to hear it.
Yeah.
And so my figures on Spotify is like it kind of is contrary to most of my songwriting peers, is that I understand that kids. I work with a lot of young bands, a lot of young kids.
Right.
Not like
No,
toddlers.
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Relative to me, they are. But I mean, I'm talking like 20-year-olds that have bands.
Yeah.
College kids or whatever, or just out of college,
right.
And they're making music. And most of them, man, they just Spotify. Whoa, what's the song? Oh, I'll check. Make me a Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And it's like CDs. I don't have a CD player.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, well, it's not like a year from now, kids like those kids are going to throw up their hands and say, you know what, man, I hate this. I want to start paying $20 for a CD again.
Yeah,
that ain't gonna happen.
It's going to be all streaming.
As much as these people on Music Row want it to still happen, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so you got to figure out a new way, man. And I'm just not a dinosaur, man. I don't want to be that person that's like, well, in my day, we used to make money. Well, I hate to tell you this, but no one makes any fucking money in this business except record labels.
Yeah.
No one does. Unless you're, Garth Brooks or Lady Gaga or Justin Timberlake or some flash crazy,
right.
lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Most people don't make any money except record labels.
Yeah.
So if record labels are removed from this equation, I think maybe, you notice the only people bitching about Spotify are people who make a lot of money the old way.
Right, yeah.
Or record labels.
Yeah.
It's not people like young kids that want to get out and put asses in the seats.
No.
Kids are what and I know, getting in a van and going out there and touring. If people don't come to your shows, you don't do that long.
Yeah, right.
And unless you're rich.
Yeah.
And you can afford to lose money.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you got to put asses in those seats.
That's it, yeah.
And people have to know to come to buy your record or buy your CD or even come just to buy your ticket.
Right.
And if they don't know, and if a record label, the old model record label that is very stingy about young bands and being very, very negative to trying new things.
Yeah.
And resistant to change.
Yeah.
If that model isn't working, then great. Fucking dust them off, man. I don't want them in my life. They've never made me money.
Right.
Yeah. All the money I've ever made has been from me busting my ass out there selling T-shirts, selling CDs, or selling tickets.
See, I fall in line with the way you think about
me too.
it. I mean, it's with
Dave Grohl said it on his thing. Read Dave Grohl's thing on it. He said, I don't give a shit about Spotify.
Right.
He said, I just want people to come to buy the record.
Exactly.
Give them a chance to buy the record. And nowadays, like when the New Dillons were out there, we were on a folk label, folk pop label. So like in Tower Records, which is such a dinosauric.
Yeah.
There is no Tower anymore.
Right.
But I mean, back then we had like 10 slots for our. We had a New Dillons, divider.
Yeah.
That said the New Dillons, and we were lucky there were 5 or 6 records. So if you played a show, and no one and people came, but they didn't buy your record at the time.
Yeah.
They would go there and buy your record, and if all 5 or 10 or whatever are gone, then they don't buy your record.
Yeah. Right.
But now. You go to iTunes, you just punch the button.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't run out.
Right.
They don't run out of records.
Right.
So it's like now the challenge is not getting people to the store, but it's getting people to know to push the button in the first place.
Yeah.
And so now it's about visibility.
Right.
How do you get visibility? Well, you put it on every possible site you can,
right.
which is iTunes, which is Spotify, which is Pandora, anything.
Right.
You know, and okay, so you don't make as much money, but you know what? The other thing that people don't realize about Spotify, and I don't want to sound like a Spotify apologist, but in just total disclaimer, the guy who runs the Spotify is the guy who mixed the last New Dillon's record. Doug Ford.
Okay.
1996, he mixed the last New Dillon's record, and he is now the head of artist development at Spotify. But anyway, be that as it may, the main thing is that with Spotify, people complain that Spotify doesn't pay as much as radio.
Right.
But radio is on in a restaurant, and 100 people in that restaurant hear that song.
Yeah.
So that's 1 of 100th.
Right.
Whereas with Spotify, it's you download it or listen to it. It's a one-person customer. So, like, there's only one person at a time hearing that.
Right.
So it's really not the same as having a radio where people are driving around on the interstate and thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are hearing that song at that moment.
Right.
Spotify's not like that. It's a one-on-one engagement.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it should be that much more.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, they need to figure it out because they do need to pay better.
Yeah.
But I think they are doing that.
What are they paying now? It's
minuscule.
Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous, really.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, it's like it's just another channel. It's just no one ever talks about YouTube, by the way.
Oh,
YouTube
sure.
doesn't pay anybody.
No, right.
Unless you have an ad on there.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? But I mean, in terms of like, if a song from the New Dillon's first record is on YouTube, you don't get any money for that.
Right.
So how's that any different than Spotify or Pandora?
Oh, it's the same. Yeah.
So I don't know. You know, I mean, it's a flawed model. It always has been, and always probably will be.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that in a way, I think the only thing that'll change is that the greediest of the greedy, the music, you know, the people who run record labels are not going to be in the picture anymore.
Right.
That's the only difference.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, and it just doesn't, you know, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know? So I think the main thing is just getting out there and making music.
Is this coming out on a label, or do you?
We have my publisher / manager has an imprint and a distribution deal with Allegro.
Okay.
So, and they're great distributors. So I think we'll probably just put it out on our own thing and have Allegro distribution.
Okay.
You know, I mean, we're probably going to talk to a couple other people. You know, and the story will help a lot. But
sure, you gonna have any help on like people like publishers trying to push it and
publicists? We have
a publicist. Okay.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Jules Wortman is her name, and she's real heavy. I mean, she does like a lot of big, you know, like she does like Big and Rich and Carter, and she did Kenny Chesney. She's worked with a lot of major country people and some pop people too. But anyway,
you can have anybody plugging it to film and TV or
my publisher
kind of
and my plugger, and then we have a guy in LA that does my stuff there. So
awesome. And
then another friend of mine actually works for Sue Jacobs, who's like one of the biggest ones in the country. So, you know, I might, you know, forward her some stuff.
Sure.
See what happens.
Sure.
You know? But I mean, like I said, the main thing is, there's a lot of options, a lot of possibilities, and hopefully a lot of, you know, hopefully something will happen.
Right.
But the main thing is the mission is accomplished in terms of what we want to do.
Well, you made a record you're happy with, so that's really,
for me,
at the end of the
everything
day.
else is kind of gravy, and no one likes to hear me say that. You know, none of the people that want to try and sell this thing really like hearing me say that, but ultimately that's what it meant to me.
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, I'm done.
Right.
You know, just tell me where to show up and play.
Right, yeah.
Now, you know,
yeah.
My work is done.
Right.
So it's like that old thing, you know, when they let, it was Duke Ellington, and basically Duke Ellington built Columbia Records, basically. And they called him into the office back in the late 50s, I guess, when he was, or mid 50s, whenever they let him go. And I mean, he basically built that label with his huge hits, because he had huge hits.
Right.
And they called him into the office and say, man, you know, you're not selling records anymore. We got to let you go. And he's like, wait a minute. isn't your job to sell the records? Isn't it my job to make the records?
Yeah, right.
Then it sounds like you're not doing your job. I'm doing my job. Why aren't you why aren't we letting you go?
Funny how that is, huh?
Yeah. And they're like, well, you're just not selling records anymore. He's like, I'm not supposed to sell records.
Right.
I'm supposed to make them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, whatever. But it's, it's a different business now than it was even when we were doing it, which isn't that long ago. But it seems
not really.
Dark ages, but it's really, really even different in the last 2 or 3 years.
Right.
This is, I think, the first year I think they said that there will not be a platinum record of an original.
I heard that. Yeah.
Original new artist, new album. Obviously, like the Beatles' greatest hits and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Platinum, but a new original artist. The first year since they started keeping track, it will not.
Yeah, and I think people have to get used to the idea that those big deals are now, like you said, the Justin Timberlakes and the Lady Gagas. Those kind of things are only 1 out of every million acts is going to do that. People will maybe make a living, but like less of a living.
I think maybe it might be a little more even. I don't know. I'd love to see that, but that's the communist in me, I guess. The socialist. But anyway, I think that the sort of the haves and have-nots philosophy has never been more dramatic.
Huh.
And but like I said, the haves are the ones complaining.
Yeah.
Like.
Do you think that the new model favors people who are maybe have, well, I guess it's probably that have artistic integrity that are in it for the right
I hope
reasons,
so, or at least there's more opportunity for anyone.
Yeah.
To maybe develop artistic integrity, even. In the old model, there really wasn't much option for that, even.
Yeah.
I'd love to think that there's a lot more opportunities for good people, but I just think in general there's a lot more opportunity for everybody.
Yeah.
Big studios are shutting down left and right, and home studios are flourishing.
Sure.
By necessity. Because no one can afford to be in the big studios. It's like no one can afford to be on a record label.
Right.
And lose their shirt, so they just put it out themselves.
Yeah.
Does that make it better? Not necessarily. That just means there's more music.
Yeah.
But that means, conversely, maybe that, or not to conflate the two, but I think that, that also could mean that there'd be a lot more good music out there.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying everyone that has never had a chance to make music before is great.
You're right.
Which is just wrong.
Sure.
But at the same time, obviously not everyone that's been making music is great.
Right. Yeah, no, true.
And the other thing is, it's like, there's a column called Bob Lefsetz. It's called the Lefsetz Letter.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and the guy he's like a 14-year-old girl on there about blowing up. I mean, he writes these blogs like 3 times a day. So I mean, you just have to kind of look beyond that. But I mean, he's right about most things. Mm-hmm. He's a music industry veteran, and he's basically like, "Hey, man, no one wants your record anymore.
Right.
No one cares about your studio record anymore.
Yeah.
And why do these people keep making these records?
Yeah.
It's about singles. It's about views. It's about this, blah blah. I don't necessarily agree totally with that, but I do agree that the sort of the old model is gone.
Right.
And this whole notion, and here I am sitting here about to release a 14-song album.
Sure.
So I mean, I'm not really, I'm not practicing what I preach per se, but I understand that the delivery system is different now.
Sure.
So maybe the whole thing needs to be reanalyzed.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm still going to put out records because that's what I want to do. I'm not doing it because it's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Or what you do to survive in this. And I'm doing it because this is a statement I'm making. Not necessarily maybe that every record's going to be that way.
Right.
Reese and I've already talked about the possibility of doing some more recording in 2015 of because I want to keep going. I mean, I love this, and he's loving it. Everyone's happy. So why not?
Why not, right.
Initially, it was just to see what happened. Now it's like, this is great. Let's do more.
Cool.
But we may not do more blown-out records. We may just do songs.
Right.
Here's a song for, here's May of 2015. Here's a new song
Yeah. I think there were a few artists a while back that would do that had like a subscription kind of thing where you pay so much and then you get a song every month. They work on something and put it out like that. I mean, to me, there's something really special about listening to a body of work that was done in a time period.
Right.
I mean, I hope it doesn't go back to all just singles because records are so cool.
Yeah, that's true. Records are cool. But some of my favorite songs are that 70s singles generation.
Yeah.
One hit wonder.
Well, like the 50s again. They would just put out singles back then, right?
Same as the 70s.
Yeah.
But I think there's always going to be good people making good music, and hopefully the more of it we can do, the better. And the more people get a chance to make music is great, because then you never know who's going to be the next REM.
Well, right, yeah. God, I hope that would be nice, huh?
Sure would, yeah. But I mean, at the same time, there'll probably be a lot more.
There's a lot more shit to wade through.
Yeah. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Some of that's good too.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah.
Some person's shit is another person's shinola. But I just love music. I love the fact that everyone can make it, and if you're good, people will dig it.
Right.
Hopefully. So yeah, it's all like that. I mean, I just think that it's a new world, and we have to figure out a way to do it. I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah.
But I think that you shouldn't shut down all these possibilities just because it's not the old way.
Right.
Because you never grow that way.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm excited to hear it, man.
Thanks, man.
Looking forward to it, and maybe we could.
When are you going to do this?
I'm gonna do this after the first of the year sometime,
Well,
so maybe I could,
track.
and I could, put a track on it and that kind of thing.
That'd be great.
I was gonna have you play a song, but I don't think we'll have, I'm not set up for it.
Yeah, I'll play with my band.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, here we are. All four of us are here. We're going to play now.
It's gonna sound.
This one's called. We'll leave
It sound just like the record.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Here we are in the studio.
Yeah.
Hey, Reese. Hey, Jim. Hey, Ken. Hey, Jim. Chris doesn't speak. He's like the harpo.
The silent partner.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, but I think this is great, man, what you're doing.
Cool.
We are currently and always looking for sponsors. So if you or anyone you know might like to advertise on the show, also please drop us a line, let us know, and we'll try and work something out that works for you and works for us. And we've also added a PayPal donation button on the homepage of tiopod.com. You don't have to donate, but every little bit helps. We are in need of getting some better equipment to get this show to a more consistent level from episode to episode. So anything you might like to drop us would be greatly appreciated, and we will thank you wholeheartedly. Every dime collected will go towards the acquisition of more equipment, better equipment, and we'll just try to make the show better for you as a listener. So thank you in advance. Also, if you haven't already done so, head on over to Facebook and give us a like on our fan page there. Just do a search for Turn It On Podcast and you'll find us. Give us a like. I also just want to say thank you in general to all of you who have taken the time to listen to the show so far and to let me know what you think. The response has been beyond what I could have expected, and I'm having a great time doing it. There are more guests coming in the weeks ahead. The plan right now is to do a show on the 1st and the 15th of each month. We're going to try to stick to that schedule, but I'll keep you posted here. There is much, much more to come, guys, so please keep listening and please keep telling your friends about the show, and I will see you next time here on Turn It On. Thanks again.